Hey, selectors, this is Hellfire. Welcome back to another This Week in WiXoss, your source for all information for the English and Japanese side of WiXoss. This week's topics, spanning from the 8th to the 14th of April, we have got, on the English side of the game, we are covering the inclusion of Mayu's Room, which we'll get to here shortly, as well as catching up on Dissonance Diva spoilers that are releasing on, or with the set releasing on April 19th. As for the Japanese side of the game, we've got catch up on Recollect Selector spoilers, and boy do we have a lot of those. But before we get into all of the news, as promised last week, when I presented the Crush My Board puzzle, I was going to give you guys hints for solving this puzzle. If you haven't figured it out already, if you have, keep it secret for everybody else. If not, here's some hints to hopefully help you out. So, if you remember from the setup, there are a few things to keep in mind, but the setup for it is in last week's episode, which is the link to the description below. But for hints, you need to deal 4 damage this turn. If you remember, your opponent has 3 life cloth with a servant in hand. So naturally, you need to find a way to get rid of the servant in your opponent's hand. And our second and last hint for this one is, while a card's properties may change while on the field, those changes don't stay when that card is moved to other zones. Keep that in mind as you work your way in figuring out the puzzle, and I will be posting the solution to that next week. And now on to English news. So, as mentioned before, involving Mayu's Room, on Friday, the English side of the game announced a update to the banned and restriction list, better yet known as Mayu's Room. Now, if you're not familiar with WiXoss, like I said before, Mayu's Room is WiXoss's version of the banned restriction list. Going off of the anime, Mayu is stuck in her own little room. I'm not going to get into too much spoilers, but anyways, so anytime a form of restriction is announced, that is where it's going to be posted. The link to this restriction list will be down below. I'll also link the Japanese version of the restriction list as well, so you can get an idea on some of that stuff. And of note, and this is of note for most card games in general, these restrictions only apply to official events. So shop events for promos, ceremonies, Grand Prix, any official event, these apply. But for like kitchen table WiXoss, where you just don't care, it's entirely optional. So, what kind of restrictions can be on here? There's simul-use restrictions, which you can't use specific cards together. Sometimes that can span across one card not being able to use with multiples. Restriction to X is you can only have up to X copies of a card. Disabled is, as you guessed, banned, or any other format-specific restrictions. So, with that, what got added on the English side of the game? I've harped on this rule for the past 2 weeks, so I'm not going to go harping again, beating a dead horse over it. But it has been officially announced, and the official wording for this rule is the rigs that meet the following conditions cannot be used in the same deck. Same rig type, but with different colors. So as we see in the image here, can't have the black level 0 Tama if you have any white level 1 or higher Tama, but if every single Tama in your rig deck is white, that is fine. This takes effect April 19th with the release of Dissonance Diva. And now we'll catch up with our spoilers for Dissonance Diva. We've got Yuka Dissona, Medium Trickster. Pay 2 white and down it to salvage a guard with a burst of Stop a Signy attack and draw 1. We have Yukime Dissona, Bless General. Beginning your main phase, you can trash this off of your field to draw 2. And at the beginning of your attack phase, if this is in your center Signy zone, you may pay 2 white in a colorless. That's a tongue twister for me, apparently. If you do, bounce a Signy on your opponent's field. Going on to red, we have Rill Desona, Crimson General. When this attacks, if you have another Desona, you may pay a red and a colorless to vanish in 8k or less. We also have Lalaru Desona, code Art. At the beginning of your attack phase, if you've used a spell, choose a card in your opponent's enter zone that does not share a color with their center and put it to trash. With a burst of, you may discard a card to vanish a 12k or less on your opponent's field. Moving on to the blue spoilers, we have Madoka Desona, code Anti. At the end of your turn, if this is up, to reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a Desona, draw a card. Sui Desona, as your general. If a frozen Signy on your opponent's field is vanished through battle with this Signy, it is put to trash instead of enter. And on enter, if your opponent has one or fewer cards in hand, freeze a Signy on your opponent's field, and this gets 4k power until the end of turn. Moving on to green, we've got Sangha Desona, type Ions. As long as you have 3 or more different colors among Signy on your field, this gets plus 4k. And you can down this to choose a Desona Signy from your enter and put it on the field. We have Op Desona, code Maze. Constant, as long as this is in your center zone, this gets plus 4k. And when this is put into your enter zone from your deck, you may add this card from your enter zone to your hand. With a burst of Enter Charge 1, and the next time you would take damage from a Larig, instead you do not take that damage. Wrapping up the week's spoilers with black, we've got Musica Desona, code Maze. On enter, you can pay a Desona card from your enter to pay out a Desona card from your enter to minus 3k something on your opponent's field. We have Maho Maho Desona, natural element. On attack, you put the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck to trash. And wrapping it up for English spoilers, we have Honorary Desona, type Drai. At the beginning of your attack phase, target Signy on your opponent's field gets minus 1k for each other Desona Signy on your field until end of turn. So max, it's like a 2k. All in all, the spoilers, a lot of like generic support cards. The Maho Maho one I really like because it's a nice little upgrade to Adams. It gives you a little more mill power, especially if you tech stuff like Phalaris or other mill options. The guard recursion off of Yuka Yuka is really fancy too, and considering from what I do know about Desona during JP format, spells are super heavy. Her spells are very heavy use in some decks. The Lalaru Desona is really nice too, as well as I think another of my favorite cards is definitely the Madoka. It's a great turn 1 play, just being able to draw an extra 2 cards unless you whiff on a servant. But that wraps it up for the English side of the spoilers. That'll probably be it for Desona, since the set does release this Friday. Probably won't be going over the next week's batch of spoilers. Instead, we'll probably go over some deck ideas for Desona for each of the new centers instead. And with that, we will move on to the Japanese side of the game with their spoilers. Bear with me, folks. I'm going to try and shorthand a lot of this as possible. We have over 40 cards to go over. So if you're listening into this, I highly suggest either rewatching this visually so you can see the translated text of the cards, or if you understand the shorthand enough, hopefully it's enough for you. I'll try my best. As always, thanks to Tetris and Haruna on the Card Games Discord for your translations. You guys make this a breeze to be able to do stuff like this. So let's get things started off with the arms package in this set. So for the level 1s, we've got Round, lightly armed. When this attacks, this Signy gets plus 7k cross turn. We have Shichi Shito, lightly armed. At the beginning of your attack phase, target one other armed Signy on your field. It gets shoot until end of turn. From a previous video, we covered this, but shoot is a new keyword that says, when this Signy vanishes an opposing Signy by battle, it is sent to trash instead of enter. With a life burst of choose a Signy, it gets can't attack until end of turn, and you draw one. For the level 2s here, we've got Letty High Armed. When another harmed Signy on your field vanishes a Signy by battle, draw 1. And Raijo High Armed. Constant, while there's another armed Signy on your field, this gets Shoot with a life burst of target a Larig on your opponent's field, and it gets constant, can't attack until end of turn. We also got some off-color armed, and the arms spell. So we've got Jaho, lightly armed. While there's another armed Signy in your enter zone, this gets 5k. Harp, high armed, level 2. When another armed Signy in your field vanishes a Signy by battle, your opponent discards 1 with a burst of down a Signy on your opponent's field, and they discard 1. As for the spell, 1 white muscle arm. Target armed Signy on your field gets the following ability until end of turn. When this Signy attacks, target a Signy in your opponent's field 8k or lower and return it to hand, with a burst of return a upped Signy on your opponent's field to their hand. On to Hanyo's gem package. We've got Amethyst, Natural War Crystal. On enter, discard a jewel to vanish a 5k or less. We got Vanadinite. During your turn, once per turn, when you discard a card from your hand, this gets 4k power cross turn with a burst of discard 1, draw 3. You will still draw cards even if you cannot discard. So all in all, it's a pretty solid burst. On to the level 2s. We've got Hisui, Natural War Crystal. On enter, pay a red, discard a jewel, vanish a 10k or lower. And Cherry Quartz, Natural Crystal. At the beginning of your attack phase, if you have discarded one or more cards from your hand, choose a card in your opponent's enter zone that does not share a color with their center and send it to trash with a life burst of target Signy your opponent's field with 12k or less, and you may pay one. If you do, vanish that Signy. As for the off-color jewel package, for level 1, we have Acroite. I'm not good with these names, apparently. Acroite, Natural Crystal. Auto, at the end of your turn, if you have discarded 1 or more cards from your hand, look at 3, add a jewel, put the rest on the bottom in any order. Level 2, we've got Onyx, Natural Crystal. During your turn, once per turn, when you discard a jewel Signy, target a Signy on your opponent's field and give it minus 2k until end of turn, with a burst of target a Signy in your trash and add it to your hand. As for the jewel spell, we've got Lava Surfing, costs 1 red, 1 colorless. Target a jewel on your field, and it gets the following ability until end of turn. While there are 2 or less cards in your hand, this Signy gets Assassin with a burst of vanish a upped Signy on your opponent's field. Moving on to electronics for Pyrolyk. We have Dishwasher, code ART. At the beginning of your attack phase, pick 1. You may discard 1 card from your hand. If you do, your opponent discards 1 card from their hand. Or you may discard 1 spell from your hand. If you do, your opponent discards 1 at random. We got Scoreboard, code ART. On enter, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a spell, draw 1. With a burst of down and freeze a Signy on your opponent's field and draw 1. As for the level 2s, we've got Smartphone, code ART. When this attacks, if you've used a spell, your opponent discards a card from hand. You got Shaver, code ART. When you use a spell, you may down this upped Signy. If you do, draw 1. With a burst of target a Larig on your opponent's field and down it. As for the off-color packages, or as for the off-color electronics and the spell for electronics, we got for level 1, Rice Cooker, code ART. On enter, discard a card, vanish a 3k or lower on your opponent's field. If you discarded a spell for this ability's cost, instead vanish a 5k or lower. For level 2, we got Toggle Switch, code ART. When this attacks, if you have used a spell, enter charge 1 and a burst of target a 7k or higher in your opponent's field and pay 1. If you do, vanish. And the spell costs 1 blue, 1 colorless. Update. Target electronics on your field gets the following ability until end of turn. When this attacks, target a Signy in your opponent's field and vanish it unless your opponent discards 2 cards with a burst of down 2 Signy on your opponent's field. For Terra Beasts, level 1s, we've got Meow, Phantom War Beast. This gets Lancer, or on enter, you may pay 1, and this gets Lancer, Signy 5k or lower until end of turn. I think this is the first time I've ever seen a Lancer ability that actually has a condition attached to it in this way. So this is actually kind of interesting to me. But basically, this Lancer only applies if the Signy is 5k or lower. We have Bayar, Phantom War Beast. At the beginning of your attack phase, all Terra Beast on your Signy, all Terra Beast on your field get 3k power until end of turn, with a burst of Enter Charge 1 the next time you would take Signy damage. Instead, you do not take that damage. The level 2s for Terra Beast, we have Ring-Tailed Lemur, Phantom Beast. At the beginning of your attack phase, if this has 10k or higher power, Enter Charge 1. And Prairie Dog, Phantom Beast. On enter, target a Terra Beast Signy on your field, and it gets plus 3k until the end of your opponent's next turn. Life Burst, Enter Charge 1. Next time you would take damage from a Lorig, instead you do not. And to clarify on that Prairie Dog ability, because I think I misspoke. It's on enter, target another. So you can't target it. You have to target another. As for the off-color packages, level 1, we got Malayan Tapir, Phantom Beast. When this attacks, if this has 5k or higher power, target Signy in your opponent's field gets minus 2k. If this has 10k or higher power, that Signy gets minus 5k instead. Level 2, we have Alpaca, Phantom Beast. If this has 10k or more power, this gets Shoot with a life burst of look at 3, add a Signy to your hand or put it on the field. The rest go to the bottom of your deck in any order. And the spell for Terra Beast costs 1 green. We have Beastly Fist. Target 1 Terra Beast on your field. It gets 5k and the following ability. When this attacks, target a Signy in your opponent's field with power lower than or equal to half of this Signy's power and vanish it. And a burst of vanish a 7k or higher on your opponent's field. Wrapping up class-based support with demons, we've got Forest, Doomed Evil. When this is sent to trash by a cost or effect, target 1 demon in your trash. You may pay a black to return it to your hand. And an action of down to mill yourself 3. We have Rom, Doomed Evil. When this is sent to trash for a cost or effect, target 1 Signy on your opponent's field and gets minus 2k. With a burst of target a Signy on your opponent's field and pay 1. If you do, it gets minus 12k. On to the level 2s here. We've got Moriga, Doomed Evil. On enter, pay a black. Trash another demon on your field to give a Signy on your opponent's field minus 8k until end of turn. Got Boon, Doomed Evil. Pay a black, down it, target a demon in your trash and put it on the field with a burst of target a demon in your trash and add it to your hand or put it onto the field. Off-color support in the spell, we've got Furcus as your evil for the level 1. When this is put from field into the trash by cost or effect, draw 1. On enter for the level 2, Fur, Crimson Evil. On enter, put 1 other demon Signy from your field into the trash. Target a Signy in your opponent's field 3k or less and vanish it with a burst of vanish a 8k or lower on your opponent's field. And then we have Devil Summon, cost 2 black. Target 2 demon Signy in your trash with different levels and put them on the field with a burst of choose a Signy in your trash without guard and add it to your hand or put it on the field. Lots of good class-based stuff. Really shows off like what these new class-based decks are trying to do. The spells are really interesting because they basically serve as extra copies of the Larigs, since I believe, if memory serves correctly, all of the Larigs have similar abilities, if not carbon copy abilities of these spells. So it's really neat to see them in like a spell form, so it's kind of a recurring effect. I'm excited for the Pure stuff, but we all knew that. Moving on to more spoilers, so we do still have like piece and assist support. So a piece that's getting printed in this set, we've got class history with a use timing of main or attack phase. Declare class, look at 3 cards from the top of your deck. From the class you declared, reveal any number of those signi, add it to your hand. Choose any number of the remaining, put them to enter zone, and the rest go to the bottom of your deck in any order. For assists, we've got Tama White. Use timing of main and attack phase. On enter, look at 5. Choose up to 2 level 2 or lower signi from amongst them to your field. Then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Those signi enter abilities do not activate. This has a grow cost of 3. We have Hanyo Marguerite. Or Marguerite. Use timing of main phase and attack phase. Grow cost of 3. On enter, target a sign in your opponent's field, 20k or less power. It gets cannot attack until end of turn. Also on enter, pay 2 in a red. Target up to 2 sign in your opponent's field with 20k power or lower. And it gets constant can't attack until end of turn. Wrapping up the assists that we've had spoiled so far, we have Midoriko capability. Use timing of main phase, grow cost of 1. On enter charge 2, then target up to 2 cards in your enter zone and add them to hand. Also on enter, this gets the following ability until the end of your opponent's next turn. Constant signi on your opponent's center signi zone cannot attack. So that's about all we see right now for team-based support. We might get more this week. Just tune in next week to see if we get any more of that. If we remember with the introduction of single rigs as well, we have a token called Limit Upper, which if you have 1 Larig and they're level 3, you get +2 limit. And as of now, there is only 1 arts that gives, well, before this, there was only 1 arts that would give you this token. It's like a draw 2, then get the token. We have 2 alternate arts to acquire this token in this set as well. We might be getting 2 more as well. There's speculation on that. But these are the 2 that we have seen so far. We have Profit Enhance, the use timing of main phase, draw 1, enter charge 1, put 1 limit upper onto your Larig zone, and we have Seek Enhance, the use timing of main phase. Look at the top 8 cards of your deck, add 1 card from amongst them to your hand, rest on the bottom in a random order, then you get a limit upper in your Larig zone. Also in the set, we see some generic colorless arts that can basically go in any deck. We have Smoke Stop, attack phase timing, target Larig on your opponent's field, and it gets constant, can't attack until end of turn. And we have Slip Stop, also use timing of attack phase. Target 1 signi in your opponent's field, and it gets constant, can't attack until end of turn. So just 2 cheap 1-stops, either with Larig or signi, or both. You can burn both in one go if you really want to. And whew, that is all we've got for Recollect Selector spoilers. Like I said, I tried to shorthand a lot of this as possible to cut down on how long we'd be sitting here. So if you need to see any of these effects, feel free to rewatch the video to see the texts. There's a lot of good stuff in here. It's definitely worth keeping an eye out for. I'll link the fandom page below that should have these translations up as well. May not be the exact wording I have, but they should have these cards translated as well if you'd like to look there. And as always, fellow listeners, thank you for listening in. Thank you for tuning in. And I will see you guys next week with more exciting news.